One of the main reasons why Clemson dominated Alabama was because Alabama simply got outcoached. Multiple times in key moments, Alabama made really poor play calls. For example, there was that terrible fake field goal on 4th and long. I don't know what you were thinking. I thought the field goal was going to put it into a 2-possession game. I was really excited. Alabama ran a terrible, terrible fake field goal. Then later on 4th and goal, near the end of the game, Alabama ran a quarterback sweep. They said, Tua, just run the ball to the outside. That's a terrible, terrible decision. I would have come up with something more creative. So multiple times, not only in play calling, but also scheme, Clemson beat Alabama. Clemson's defensive coordinator, Brent Venables, had an incredible game plan. But it's not just that Brent Venables had a great game plan. It's the fact that Clemson's players were able to execute the wonderfully designed game plan. That's so impressive. It's one thing to have a plan. It's another thing to actually follow through and have your guys execute it. So Brent Venables, listen to that name, Brent Venables. He's Clemson's defensive coordinator. Earlier in July 2018, he signed a 5-year deal worth $11.6 million. He delivers every single ounce of that money. I think eventually you're going to hear Brent Venables' name brought up as a head coaching candidate. I really hope Brent Venables stays at Clemson. I do. I think that he's got an incredible thing going. I mean, we see a lot of guys have a great thing going, and they bail early. They leave the dynasty. A great example of that recently was North Dakota State. They're a Division I AA team, an FCS team. They just won their 4th national championship in 5 seasons. Actually, it's their 7th national championship since 2011. That means NDSU, North Dakota State University, has won a national championship every single season, except for 2016 and since 2011. And Chris Klieman is NDSU's head coach. He just left. He's leaving after 5 seasons and 4 national championships. Again, 4 of those 7 national championships, he was the head coach. He's leaving from NDSU to go to Kansas State. He's leaving a dynasty behind. And I love Chris Klieman. I hope he has a great career. He's not going to be nearly as successful at Kansas State as he was at North Dakota State. It's just not going to happen. You can't duplicate that success. So I think Chris Klieman's honestly making a mistake leaving a dynasty behind. And I really hope Brent Venables doesn't do something similar. Brent Venables is an unbelievable defensive coordinator. He's great for his role. He's an integral part of what Clemson does. And if we're going to keep this Alabama-Clemson rivalry going, Brent Venables being at Clemson is a huge part of that. I hope he stays at Clemson and lets the dynasty play out. I think the next 4 to 5 seasons between Alabama and Clemson is going to be a slugfest, a battle in recruiting, a battle in the college football playoff. It's going to be fun. I can't wait to see it. I think it's interesting to look at the differences as well as the similarities between Alabama's head coach, Nick Saban, and Clemson's head coach, Dabo Swinney. Here's a weird stat for you. I found this. It's very bizarre. In the last 4 seasons, both Clemson and Alabama are 55-4 with 2 national championships. It's crazy. They're like identical. They're twins. It's so funny to me. But if you watch the way the 2 teams simply leave the locker room, there's so much symbolism there. I think it's fascinating, and it really translates to the way that the 2 head coaches run their programs. So if you watch Nick Saban and Alabama leave the locker room, the way they run out of the tunnel, Nick Saban is leading his team. Literally, his team is behind him, and Nick Saban leads the way. If you watch Dabo Swinney, Clemson's head coach, run out of the tunnel, he's arm in arm with his players. He's physically with his players. Leading together versus leading the players. It's interesting to me. Nick Saban's kind of like the stern principal, and Dabo Swinney's the cool uncle, the older brother, the guy you admire, but he's one of the guys. You respect him, you listen to him, but he's one of you rather than up above you. And so while you respect both Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney, I have a feeling Dabo Swinney is far more fun. Alabama's dominated. That's great. But the more you dominate and win, the harder it is to listen to some guy yelling at you to work harder. And that's the way that Nick Saban leads. So I think that based on the styles of the 2 teams, Clemson's more fun, Alabama's a little bit more stern, more grinded out. Based on the wear styles, I think Alabama and Clemson are both exactly where they need to be going into this offseason. Clemson's on top. And Dabo Swinney's message of, let's have fun and win, that works really, really well when you're the top dog. I think it's interesting, the number 1 recruit from Alabama, Justin Ross, the best high school recruit in Alabama last year, didn't go to Auburn, didn't go to Alabama University. He went to Clemson. That's a big message. Recruiting in the South, people go, oh man, Nick Saban's not even getting the best recruit out of his own state. That's a big deal. And then in the title game, that same player, Justin Ross, who left Alabama, the state of Alabama, left his home state to go to Clemson. That same player went off, had a bunch of great catches and had a long touchdown for Clemson against Alabama, against his hometown team. That's a big deal. Clemson dominated Alabama 44-16. So players in the South, high school football players, look and go, Clemson's having fun. They're landing great recruits, and they beat Alabama pretty heavily. The biggest loss we've ever seen Alabama take. Who would you rather play with? If you're a high school kid in the South, would you rather play with fun Clemson, that fun Dabo Swinney guy who's in arm with his players and they're winning championships? Or would you rather play for the guy who yells, Nick Saban? This is why Alabama is exactly where they need to be. Right now, as of this offseason, Alabama's an underdog. First time in a long time. And that's exactly where they need to be. Nick Saban's grinded out style, that stern approach, it works better when you're pissed off and trying to get back to the top. As an underdog, getting yelled at motivates you. When you're on top, you go, shut up, old man. It's just a different approach. It's just very different. And so I really, truly believe Clemson, Alabama, the next 4 or 5 years is going to be a heavyweight fight. I can't wait to watch how the recruiting plays out. Who gets better recruits? Who recruits better in the South? Where do players from the South want to go? Clemson or Alabama? Stern, fun. Dominated in the national championship, just lost the national championship. Where do players go? And how are they going to play each other in the college football playoff? I know a lot of people are talking about, this team's up and coming, and that team's up and coming. Ohio State, Michigan, I don't know. The teams I'm most interested in right now are Clemson and Alabama. That back and forth, that drama in the South, who's going to dominate in the next couple of years, that is what I want to watch. Clemson, Alabama. I know people are upset. People are like, another boring championship. I loved it. I ate it up. I love that drama between these two head coaches and these two programs. And I guarantee Alabama is going to come looking for revenge in the future against Clemson. I hate doing this. It makes me feel uncomfortable. I really don't like self-promotion. It makes me feel like a used car salesman. But I got to do it. So if you don't know, this is my podcast, Strong Opinion Sports. It's my favorite thing in the world. And you can subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud. You can find it on YouTube. You can find the full entire hour-long podcast on YouTube. You can also find shorter breakout clips like the one you just watched. Please do me a favor. If you like anything I had to say, maybe you hate me and you're mad about something, share this podcast with your friends. Share it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you want to do. Help me grow by telling your friends about this show.